Bases dropped on Soccer's morning show. It's another round of soccer down here. And as promised, batting leadoff. And this is why we're even earlier than Turner time. It's Glenn Crooks, voice of NYCFC and proud alum of the University of Georgia. Glenn, it is John, it is Jarrett. Thanks for hopping on for Soccer's morning show on a Wall Pass Wednesday.
Well, thank you. I love the introduction, the introductory graphics. And before we went on, I suggested MLS time going at 08, but I'm happy to be on early.
There's too much to talk about, and obviously we'll get into NYCFC. But yesterday, as news broke while we were on the air, I know that you had mentioned the new playoff format, and Jarrett and I decided to sit there and give the Siskel and Ebert thumbs down to the some of the aspects of the new playoff format. When it rolled out yesterday, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, we had heard some of the possibilities along the way. Our boys at The Athletic, I had read their article in the morning with Phil Neville, Inter Miami head coach, and this was before the announcement, and Neville was getting into it as to how could they not have a playoff format for us. And he was looking at it from a sporting standpoint. Look, as a coach and as a program and with your sports science people and all these other individuals, you chart out the course of your season in a really particular way. And honestly, not knowing what the playoff format is, I think is reprehensible at this late date. That's my personal assessment just as a coach. I want to know so I could, chart things. And that might seem ridiculous. The playoffs don't start until November or whenever they're going to start. And but from a coaching standpoint in particular, it disturbed me that there was no playoff format till this week. And as far as the format goes, and that article, by the way, had some juice to it with the Pro Rel, and now The Athletic is no longer, they're not allowed to go to media day at Inter Miami. They're out, which is that talk about reprehensible. That's another thing we could chat about if you want. I really can't believe that. But the playoff form, the biggest thing about the playoffs for me that I don't agree with is that 62% of the MLS teams are going to the postseason, and that's ridiculous. There's only one other league of our big five, if you want to say here in the States, the NBA, that has more, and all the others, baseball, hockey, NFL, it's 50% or less. And I like the playoff format. So it's not, just in general, the American, it's very, and this best of three, there's nothing more American than that, right?
Yeah. So
I don't know. I'm more disturbed by the number of teams that are in the postseason than anything about the format, because I think you should having 7 in each division or each conference is not a bad thing to me, because there are so few points that separate a lot of those teams, especially near the bottom end of that. And throughout the course of the season, you might have certain things. It could be international duty and losing some of your players during the break when MLS plays games during the international break, which is also ridiculous in my mind. Again, from a sporting standpoint, that I don't have my whole team there. Yep. There's reasons why these things are done, but I don't like it. You might have injuries along the way. You get an ankle injury in soccer, you're out 6 to 8 weeks. So you're without, and that could happen to multiple players. And then near the end of the season, you have everybody back and you're all juiced and you're playing well, and you finish 7th and you still get into the postseason because you're a good team. So I think the rewards of having 7 in each conference make sense to me because of how long the season is and how sometimes maybe the best teams don't get in because of their situations throughout the course of the year. So that's my feeling. But 9 teams, and when this was originally, I don't even remember who put it out there, but it was out there a month or two ago, and I was, I immediately, I'm sure publicly, I said something to the effect that it's ridiculous to have that many teams in the postseason, and it is. But let's face it, there's one word as to why it's occurring: Apple, and that's it.
I was going to say, I was going to go Money. Yeah.
And that's Apple.
How do you spell love? Money. Jarrett Smith for Glenn Crooks. Go for it.
Well, I mean, y'all just pretty much hit the thesis right on the head. So I guess we'll just carry on with that one. Yeah, because I agree with you, Glenn, in the sense, especially when it comes to the number of teams in the playoff. Maybe it's because I am a romantic who grew up, at the very edge of the wild card era of baseball, where it's 4 teams getting in,
Right.
where the playoffs felt. I don't want to say it felt like a privilege. But
if I could interrupt real quick, and then
you
go on, is that in my era growing up, I was a baseball fan first. The American League champion met the National League champion in the World Series. There were no playoffs, but continue.
No, yeah. I mean, it's even baseball has gone down this path of what if we did this and this and this and this, and now it's nigh unrecognizable. But I agree with you on the sense in terms of the number of teams. I wanted to get your opinion on because this is something that I have argued back and forth with people about the 1 leg versus 2 leg. Because I know after you get the best of 3, then it's a bunch of one-off games. How did you feel about that versus the 2 legs like they used to have?
I like the 2 legs probably more because I've followed European soccer and how the Champions League works, and that's certainly one of the biggest competitions globally in soccer. And I always thought, and again, you have to understand, I look at so much from a coaching perspective and a sporting perspective because that's what I did for so long. So I like the fact that, it's a 180-minute game. It's not a 90-minute game any longer. So you really have to manage that. And so, some people the first leg is very cagey and, there's concerns there. So I like that format. I don't know if the away goal thing, not so much so, but I like the 2 legs. The best of 3. Jim Curtin talked about the best of 3 recently, and his point on it is that if you play the 3 games, that you split the first 2 and you play the third game, these 2 teams have played each other so many times in a short period of time that they really hate each other at the end. And that game 3 is like
take the over on cards.
Yes. Yeah, so you got your WWE right there, boys. Mm-hmm. Just what you. So that's an interesting perspective. The narrative, I think, for most that are chiming in on social media, and I'm telling you, I talked to a lot of players, certainly for New York City FC and the coaches, and they all really liked the format last year. The one-off. It's just a one and done, and it added drama whether you're in the road park or your home park. And Phil Neville in that article with Pablo Maurer and Felipe Cardenas, he mentioned walking into Citi Field in that playoff game. Miami lost to New York City FC last year in the playoffs, but he talked about walking into that stadium and it having a very European feel, like an English football stadium feel. It was that kind, and because he was talking about, the next step for MLS is, every stadium needs to be, the passion of the fan base. You guys probably aren't aware of this. I'm just back from a 10-day trip to England, and I saw 5 matches. I saw Palace Brighton at Selhurst Park. I saw Leeds Man United at Ellen Road. I saw Liverpool Everton at Anfield, and then Arsenal Man City at the Emirates. And I'm pumped for the season now because you just these the fan base, the passion, I can't accurately describe it. I sent some things on social media like the "You Never Walk Alone" being sung by Liverpool, all that. But if you're not there, and I was with my son, and he is still. I just told my wife he's still texting me. He's still reflecting on the trip because it was just the atmosphere more than anything. And so Phil Neville was talking about that. He talked about walking into Citi Field, the old baseball stadium, one of the 2 homes for New York City FC. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Since you mentioned NYCFC, we'll go ahead and open that door. As the play-by-play voice for NYCFC, the Jury of 13, as I've called them, over at MLSsoccer.com, had NYCFC all over the place in their predictions. And we all know what preseason predictions are usually good for, and it's usually file 13 after the first couple of weeks. Everywhere from 2nd to 10th in the East, the Jury of 13 at MLSsoccer.com. What's your vibe for NYCFC and the Double Blue coming into this season?
Yeah, I think that's reflective of the fact they've lost so many players. They really haven't added too much to replace the players that are missing. And so there are question marks. And I'm going to practice a little bit later this week, and I've got a lot of questions. It'll be the first time I'm face-to-face with Nick Cushing, and we'll record a pregame show for our broadcast on the weekend. And, I do have a lot of questions that I haven't really been able to ask yet. And with the teams not streaming any of their games, which if that's an Apple MLS thing, then that's what I've heard. But please, man, let the supporters see their teams. For me, it's the selfish part of it. I just want to see them play and get a feel what's going on. But for the supporters, they can't see their team in preseason. It's ridiculous. And so they've got to solve that. Whatever, it's not going to be an Apple broadcast. People just, they hold up a video camera. Those streams sometimes are pretty primitive. It doesn't matter. But anyway. So here's the losses. I made sure I wrote this down so that I didn't forget anybody. If we go from mid-season last year on, Tati Castellanos to Girona, Nico Acevedo, who became a very, very, very important member of the midfield, he was loaned to Bahia, which is a sister club now, as is Girona. And you've got a list of sister clubs here. Alex Collins, free agent, he goes to Girona. Because that was going to happen. He wanted to desperately play in La Liga. So Anton Tinnerholm, free agent, he goes back home to Sweden, which I think it was his desire anyway. And he's playing for Malmo again, which is where he came from. Sean Johnson, free agent in goal, Toronto FC. So now you have the question mark in goal in a competition there. Maxi Morales, I'm telling you what, if he came back, he would have made positive contributions. And especially with this question mark about Santi Rodriguez, who's still training for Torque, but it's my understanding that New York City is in negotiations with Rodriguez because, again, Torque is Montevideo is a sister club, and if you go on the club first team on the MLS soccer website, Santi Rodriguez is still on there, but he's not at training. So, will he be running the midfield or be the attacking midfielder that he was so effective at last year, leading the team in assists? And so if you lose your top two assist makers, your top two playmakers in Rodriguez and Morales, if Rodriguez doesn't come back, that's a massive, massive hole, and it changes the midfield. It's a major impact on the midfield because now you're playing Keaton Parks as a 10, or you're playing twin eights with him and Alfredo Morales, and Justin Hack would be moved into a full-time role as well. So we'll just have to see if Rodriguez indeed. There are reports from what I'm told by my Spanish colleagues, out of Argentina and Uruguay, that put Santi Rodriguez back at New York City FC, that an agreement has already been pounded out or a signature is going to be there soon. Don't know. That's key. If they don't have Santi Rodriguez, that's going to be that's a real difficult replacement. That's something that's going to happen now in the summer, through transfer. And then if you want to get into the goalkeeping, it's Luis Barraza through Matt Freese, and I think it's pretty much a battle between those two. But I expect Barraza to start against Nashville. I'm not sure when that'll be announced, but he started all the preseason games. But Freese is good, man. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
I wanted to ask actually about Nick Cushing a bit, because we know Ella leaves in the middle of the season last year. Nick Cushing takes over. It kind of from the outside. And we don't have the same perspective as you do, but it felt like from the outside, it was kind of stop-start at times with him. And then it hit its stride late in the season. You get the playoff run, go up on Philly in the playoffs. So what was the view from your angle on the progression they made under Nick Cushing throughout that season?
Well, he was put in a really tough spot. So they were unbeaten in 8 going into the international break, and then Ronnie Dyla leaves during the break for Standard Liège. And now Nick is put into this interim role. So, it's almost you can't win because you're 8 games unbeaten rolling into it. And then there were a number of injuries, including Alexander Collins. For a long time, he did not have his full complement. And that was such a, and he tried not to harp on that because he never wanted to see it as an excuse. But when New York City started to perform well, they had their players. And the other guy who improved along the way, who became critical, And when he was stuck in Brazil on visa issues, only arrived last Monday, Gabby Pereira. I think he'll have a big year. And we talked about the departure of Castellanos. Eber, I didn't include Eber in that list. Eber is gone to Seattle. He was the backup striker. And that means Tylus Magno is going to move into that front runner's role, I would think, with Pereira on the right and Thiago Andrade on the left, another young Brazilian who now needs to really come into his own. He hasn't, but he's got exceptional skill and speed, and he can get a lot done. So I think Cushing, you had to give him a bit of a pass in there because there was a stretch where it was seriously looking, not in a positive way, and there was maybe not a playoff berth, and who knows what would have happened if they didn't get into the playoffs. I think he still would have been brought back this year. And, one of their best moves, certainly in the offseason, was signing Nick Cushing permanently. I think he's a very good coach.
Couple of more minutes with Glenn Crooks, the voice of NYCFC and SiriusXM. He's all over the place. Trust me.
Yeah.
Any channel that you have involving soccer, Glenn Crooks is part of it. He's here with us hanging out this morning.
Hey, I've never been on Twitch before, so this is a big moment for me. This is great.
I mean, and what we do, we take this, it's live here, we roll it over later, and so folks can catch it here, and then if they miss it, they go and listen to the audio part. When you look at the rest of the East, what do you see this year? If you were to be a part of the jury of 13 and had your own set of predictions going into this season, what are you looking at from the rest of the Eastern Conference? Philly and then ...
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to rank them for you because I just think there's so many unknowns, and I generally don't get involved with that. Mm-hmm. Unless I happen to be at the casino and want to place a wager
involved. Yes, absolutely. Understood.
And so Nashville, this team that New York City is playing on the weekend, I see them, they've been taking these steps. And one thing that Walker Zimmerman said in the offseason in an article was how their goal this year is to have the ball more. I think they're noted as a team that defends well, but they were in the top 10 in scoring. And by the way, if anybody listening or watching is a subscriber to SiriusXM, my guest this week for the full hour of my show is Mike Jacobs, the general manager for Nashville. And he's a real interesting story. I mean, he has spent more of his time as a coach professionally than he has in an administrative role. He worked under Peter Vermees a little bit at Sporting KC as an assistant technical director before he got this GM job. This guy is sharp. He's a New Yorker, and he's this New Yorker working in the Southeast, which I like too. And so I'm intrigued by Nashville. I really am. And Hani Mukhtar might be questionable for this week. He was held out of their last scrimmage. So I would look for Nashville to get in that top 4 realm. I think they finished 6th last year. So I'm just going to, I do have a little list here. I'm just going to, if I could highlight down at your boy, I got to talk about Atlanta since this is,
it's where we're based.
Their area. Their best acquisition in the offseason is Garth Lagerwey. Not even close.
I thought you were going to say health and welfare.
Yeah. Well, I think their best acquisitions, one was addition by subtraction, Joseph Martinez, and then Garth Lagerwey, who is, I think, here's a guy that, played in the league. He's just and what he did in Seattle, and how I think he's just got those executive smarts. He deals with people well. And I know he's not in like a GM position now. He's in the president or the CEO?
Yeah, both. Yeah, both.
Yeah, but you can't tell me he's not going to be involved in those decisions. I mean, that's. And then I have invested. I haven't seen this Celtic striker play that much, Giacomakis.
Giacomakis, yes.
But I have several close mates who are diehard Celtic supporters, and they watch every moment of every game. And one is a coaching colleague of mine. And he said this dude's the real deal. He's a goal scorer. So I think Atlanta has done well in shall we say, replacing Joseph Martinez with somebody who could be a legitimate goal scorer. Beyond that, FC Cincinnati, another team that just, you just love the way they're coached. And, the guy, Pat Noonan came from Philadelphia under Jim Curtin, and they're both very similar in their not concerned about possession, very strong on the counterattack, like to press and win the ball close to goal. I mean, a lot of teams are starting, are doing that, but this is like, their DNA. But the biggest news in Cincinnati is that both Brenner and Vasquez are back.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them were under consideration for transfers. Vasquez was going to go to Nottingham Forest, but they didn't meet the price of FC Cincinnati. And Brenner, he's back training just recently with Cincinnati because there were talks about him, going overseas too. So both those guys are back. And without them, I don't know where I would put Cincinnati, but they're going to be a top 4 candidate as well, I think. Beyond that, Philadelphia, they'll have the exact same lineup that they had last year. So sometimes that doesn't work. You need these subtle changes are important, but under Jim Curtin, I don't sense that that's going to be an issue. I don't think he'll let that be an issue. And two of the most intriguing, I think, teams to watch are Toronto FC and Columbus Crew. Toronto, because, Toronto could go from worst to first. I mean, that's how dramatic it might change for them. They now have Sean Johnson, an MLS champion goalkeeper from New York City FC. That's got to be a positive because they went with the Bono, Westberg. I don't know who else was there, but they've really struggled in that area of the pitch. And the thing, and I don't think you can ever discount, guys, the Insigne and Bernadeschi, that they came in the summer and they're going to be better, having a year under their belt, having settled in, in terms of living there. And that's a team that, and I have faith in Bob Bradley and what he can do. And Michael Bradley looks like he's going to be sitting in the hole again in the midfield. So I don't know how much longer he can last, but I look out for Toronto. And then the Columbus, I'm intrigued because of Wilfred Nancy. And one of my recent guests on SiriusXM FC was Nate Miller, the San Diego Loyal head coach, who took his pro license with Nancy and several others. And he said, this guy is brilliant. He spent a lot of time with him, just listening. And so that's a team I want to look at closely too.
Yeah, Toronto also adding Matt Hedges at the back as well. Before you go, I wanted to talk your defending, repeating national champions in the other football, college football. You are a UGA alum. How does it feel to be at the top of the mountain for 2 years running and probably 3 by the time we're done? How does it feel to be?
Well, it's almost like as long as it's not Alabama, I'm very happy it's Georgia. But as long as it's not Alabama, I have a high school mate who went to Alabama. We go back and forth, and then when Bama had, they had the best of us for a while there. But my biggest question is, did they make another? I have a Coke bottle. Do I have it handy? Oh, can I run and get it so you can look at it?
Yeah, go run and get it.
Hold on. It's right here.
Okay. So Glenn, I'm guessing Glenn is getting his national championship from the early 1980s Coke bottle from his office. This is massive.
This is massive. So this is they won the national championship in 1980.
That's epic.
Herschel Walker was a freshman. So here it is. I'm never opening it. And then back here, it's got the whole awesome schedule. And this is the coolest thing. Then they won it last year. And I have to say, they had a very lame replica. So I was even told not to get it.
Wow.
So I'm wondering if they've, upgraded the winning Coke bottle. I can't believe they should have just done the identical thing and then put the darn year in the schedule here, man.
Exactly. So to tell you what I will do, DM me your address there at Crooks Estates. I will try to track down a Coke bottle from this past national championship, or maybe even a 6-pack, and I will ship it to you. So you can have it there in at Crooks Estates, okay?
Yeah, I've got it right up here on my. I have a second one up here, and then the third one would be wonderful.
Okay, so before you go, time for the plug. What are you doing? What parts of the world are you in? Meaning all of them. So go ahead and lay out the promo for me. What's going on?
Well, if you ever have a chance to go watch a match at Ellen Road, the home of Leeds United, go do it. And Anfield. We saw Anfield. I mean, they were exuberant and then in misery in the Real Madrid game on Tuesday. But you could hardly through the TV. You could capture the emotion and the noise in that building. It is really quite unbelievable. But I'll be on the New York City FC circuit. I travel with the team, so all the radio is done from the stadium. Yep. And we're on. We don't have a home radio station. Our thing is all digital on TuneIn, the app, which is a worldwide app, and also NewYorkCityFC.com. And so it's pretty easy to find. It's just the New York City FC network. Not that anybody listening here is going, but maybe when we play Atlanta, turn down Jason and maybe.
Whoa! Wow, a two-speaker experience, and coaches.
And we're still trying to sort out. The home team gets this drop down on the Apple app so that people can tune into the hometown broadcast. I'm not sure why they're not doing the away team to do it, because that seems to make more sense to me, but not every. I'm sure there's a technical reason why.
I think you have to hardwire each signal to the TV truck, and then it's got to go out.
Well, the problem is most radio doesn't travel. I know Jason and I do with our teams, and I'm so. It's really it's a privilege to work for New York City FC, and I'm very happy, and it's. I know that we're privileged because of the fact that they travel us, and there's very few radio that travels, and they let us on the charter. And it's really been for me personally, it's just been a great gig. I've been there since the first kick, and then was there in Portland for MLS Cup. And, there's been ups and downs. I'm friends with Patrick Vieira and Jason Kreis and Dome Terran and Ronnie Dyla. These are all really different guys. And Nick Cushing and I are quite close because we have this shared experience of coaching Carly Lloyd. I had Carly at Rutgers. He had her at Manchester City for the women there. And these guys are, to me, they've got such a great football heritage. And so it's really, it's been very, very cool for me. And the SiriusXM show, man, it's like my one goal is to get Pep Guardiola on, but I keep getting told that's not going to happen. But I've had just many MLS coaches on with me to share their experiences. USL, club coaches, players, administrators. It really runs the gamut. So I'm a better coach now since I started this show. About 8 years ago. So it's I'm a happy guy, and here's my this is where I do most of my interviews right here.
Yeah.
See Bob Marley over my right shoulder. He's my spiritual leader.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
All right. Question from the Twitch pitch. Did you get a ring when NYCFC won the title?
I did. Hold on.
Uh-oh. It's in the office. Oh, it's in a box.
And I have two rings. And here it is.
Oh, very shiny.
Where is it? And it's got my name on it.
Oh, very shiny. Very nice.
I mean, those are real diamonds in there. And I got a really cool one. And to plug my brothers and sisters at Rutgers University, this is when we went to the Final Four. I say we, my assistant for many years, Michael O'Neill, was the head coach for the two Final Fours, and that's a ring from there. So.
Strong.
Yes.
See, this is what happens when we hang out with Glenn Crooks in his office. Coach's Corner, SiriusXM, play-by-play voice of NYC. I know we went added time, extra time. We went AET with you this morning in hanging out with us, but it is match week. Glenn, as always, thanks for hanging out with us here on Soccer's Morning Show here at SDH. We'll be keeping an ear out for you. We'll be keeping an eye out for you when NYC and Atlanta play. And as always, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. You have golden ticket status here on SDH. So whenever you want to crash the party, and literally you can crash the party. So shoot me a DM. Hey, Nelson, I want to come on this morning. I got stuff I want to get off my chest. Golden ticket status for Glenn Crooks right now.
Wow. Well, maybe we should do a show on media being prevented from entering a facility because their coach tells the truth. Can we do that one? I mean, what the heck is going on in this world? But thank you for that offer. And get out. If I do come on again, I want Jason in here.
What if, man? What if you're coming on? Jason is spending a lot of time up at the practice facility. He's doing stuff with Atlanta United. And so it is literally the caddies at Bushwood now. That is what we have here. It is me and Jarrett and everybody else.
Well, that's good, man. That is good. And
Jason comes in occasionally as the special guest star on the Quinn Martin production. So that's where we are. So it's like Barnaby Jones now with Jason. Glenn, always my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.